I just thought I'd do a little quick video about the 9 litre keg setup that I use in the flat. Adam John asked me a question a week about it. I think because he, is considering getting kegs in the flat and that, and asking how kind of easy is it in that. It is and it ain't. It's not without its problems. It's not as ideal as having an actual keg set up with a CO2 bowl. Don't get me wrong, you could get a little mini CO2 bowl, I think it's like a 3.5 or 3 something, and that would give you a better setup. But there's obviously constraints with kegging, in the flat and not having the suitable equipment. But what I basically do is start with the beer into the keg. I just add priming sugars if I was priming for bottles. I think, what did I put in the last keg? About 30 grams of just table sugar. Obviously like a sugar solution chucked in the keg. I know there's various articles that suggest how much sugar. I think it's like this. I think some of them suggest less because of the headspace in the keg overall compared to the amount of bottles you'd use, but I've just kind of ignored that and just gone with the same, and it's been okay. You're not going to kind of get the same level of carbonation that you would if you was kegging properly, because I'm not even sure what kind of PSI it kegs up to, forces up to once it's done the sort of natural carbonation. There are little kind of things you can get to go on the end that have like a little gauge. I would like to get one of them so you can sort of put it on just to see what the pressure's like in the thing. I think a bit like Tube Dino's has got on his little keg system. It's got like a little dial when it tells you. But I've just, it was an extra bit of equipment. I would like to get it one day, but it's not overly necessary at the moment. What you're going to kind of get out of the keg with just putting the sugar in is almost like a cask conditioned carbonation. Going to be very gentle, not super fizzy. So you're not going to my mind, with that, well, you can. I'll lead on to it in a minute. You're not going to get the levels of carbonation that you could otherwise. The main reason being is with normal carbonation and the CO2, you put it on the CO2 and you keep it in a cooled environment, so the CO2 is much more absorbed into the keg. I don't have that facility in the flat. Right, it's just kind of put in, let it carbonate in a warm place like you would like bottles, and then I take it out, keep it somewhere a little bit cooler after a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, and then I just serve it. Which brings me on to the other thing, which is you can use the tap that goes straight in the keg, but obviously these work a lot better when you purge a lot of the CO2 out, which is fine. But when you use this kind of system, if you purge all the CO2 out, you're losing a lot of the CO2 that you built up, which isn't a problem, but because I use these little CO2 capsules, it could work out more expensive. If you had a CO2 bottle in the flat, that wouldn't matter. You could just put it straight, your regulator on, and then dispense it out, and you'd be taking it from the big bottle. But basically, because I use these capsules, sometimes I lean towards using the like a picnic tap. Then it reduces down to 3/16 line. Then that goes onto the Corny keg fitting onto the thing, and then dispenses out, which reduces. I think it's called fobbing, so it stops all the foam and whatnot. You do get an initial bit of foam because there's obviously a lot, not a lot of pressure, but a bit of pressure built up in there. But I find because it's kind of that kind of natural carbonation, you'll find that you'll pour a couple of pints off one night, get a little bit kind of like it's needing a bit more CO2, but you could just leave it, and in a couple of days' time, because it's sort of still, evolving in the barrel, if you like, you get a little bit more kind of, CO2 built up the next day. It seems to kind of come out a bit stronger, or you can just top it up. The charger that I use, it's called a Genuine Innovations charger. You still get them on eBay, I've seen them around. There are other chargers that I've seen that do the same thing, but I've kept with this one just because I know some of the bulbs that fit it, and that'll bring me on to the next bit. But obviously they say that you shouldn't use any other bulb other than their one, like all manufacturers do, because it voids the warranty and blah 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 blah. But their bulbs are stupidly expensive. I think like this system is designed to fit onto the Corny keg thing, but these sort of chargers started out as, I think, inflating bike tyres on on the fly, sort of just shoot it in, the tyres inflated. So a lot of these bulbs are stupidly expensive because people don't use them in the quantities that I've been using them in. But you can get other ones. Let me find the one that I found does work is the Young's 16 gram bulb, and this is the other thing, it's the 16 gram bulb. You do get the 8 gram bulbs, which you sort of put in your king kegs or your sort of, you know, the plastic type kegs with the little red charger. It's not them, they're 8 gram. If you get them, they will not fit this charger, so you need the bigger 16 gram ones. I think I got these from the homebrew shop, and you can get them for about, I think it's about $5 or $4.50 for 5, which probably seems quite expensive in the long run in terms of gas, but for one bulb I probably put a couple of bursts in, release the pressure valve on the top, let it out, purge it, and then put another couple of squirts in, and then normally I have enough carbonation in the keg to get most of the 9 litres out through the duration that the beer's in there. On occasion I've had to top it up a couple of times, so it's generally one bulb per batch of beer, but sometimes it, you know, it can vary. If I've been draining the keg a lot that night and I think I need some more beer and it's coming out too slow, I will crank another one out. Finding obviously replacement bulbs can be a tricky thing. The young ones definitely work. Sometimes they're hard to find. If you can only find them in certain shops, you've got to pay postage. There are another 2 manufacturers, and a lot of these are used for paintball as well. And there's 2 companies. One is Liss, and from what I heard is that the Liss ones don't fit. They've got like a little bit of a wider neck, and I read on another forum of people getting a bit of wet and dry and sanding the collar down, and that to me sounded scary as hell, because it's a pressurised container. I don't want to be attacking that with a bit of sandpaper and it exploding in my hand. I could be overreacting, but for me, you know, things, when you've got to interfere with things, it's a little bit, you know, on the side of caution. I wouldn't mess around with that. But there's another company called Moser which make them, and this is the tricky thing, the Moser ones supposedly fit really well. I found a website that sell them, and they were selling a lot of these CO2 bulbs for, I think they're like a whipping dispense for whipped cream, and they had the Moser ones listed. I ordered them, they took weeks and weeks to come, and eventually they said they couldn't get them. They had to get one of their suppliers to get them. Then this other supplier sent them through, and it turned out they were another seller on eBay. And I got the bulbs, they fit, they were great. But on their website, all I could see was that they stocked the Liss ones, whereas I'd heard that Liss don't fit. So I was kind of still none the wiser about which definitely fit, but most of them don't actually have a stamp of the manufacturer on them. So all I can confirm is that the Young's one definitely fit without any trouble. I have heard, obviously, that the Liss ones need the wet and dry, so I'd avoid that. But from what I hope that these were the Moser ones, they do fit. I won't take the charger out now because it's still got, you know, a pressurised container in there. But in that little plastic chamber there, that holds the bulb, and you just basically put that into the socket and then screw the socket on. There does have a thread with inside that, and when you use a threaded bulb, you don't need to use the actual capsule thing. But the only danger, or not danger with that, is you need to put like a little bit of foam or something around it, because once you start depressurising from it, these get very cold, and you didn't want it to, you know, stick to your hand and freeze in your hand. So normally the non-threaded ones use the little carrier, and the threaded ones you have to kind of, you know, screw in yourself. I believe another chap, Dullahan Brewing, had a video where he had a similar charger, slightly different one, which took bulbs. Again, the only reason I didn't deviate is because I know what bulbs now fit this, and you know, if I knew that one would fit any type of bulb, I'd go for that. But there are other ones I've seen where, you know, that still goes on the keg via even a little bit of tubing, and there's a little bit of a dial, so you can sort of crank it open, let a bit of CO2 in, or turn it off. This is just like a trigger, so you just hold it on. I'll do a little. Oh, it's nearly gone anyway. Actually, oh, it's because of the thing, it won't come out. So there's a little bit of, you know, a hiss when it comes out. That's about it really. Obviously, without having refrigeration, it is a bit of a minefield in terms of how well you're going to get it carbonated. It's never going to be like, you know, some people set up. For talking sake, I've gone round Hammer Home Brews. He's got the dedicated fridge, the bottle on the outside. That's perfect. It's not going to be like that. But for me, it's a halfway house. It's in between. And for me, at the moment, it works great in the winter. But I no doubt that in the summer, trying to keep this keg cooler to serve it a bit better is going to be a chore, which is why I did get the neoprene cover, which they're not really that available in the UK. I knew someone that lived in Australia. They brought one back with them that you can put over the keg, So you could have the keg somewhere else in the fridge cooling down, and once you take it out, that cover keeps it cool, they say, for like 4 or 5 hours on it. But you can get like an ice pack, all these ice blankets that go in between the neoprene cover and the keg, which would keep it cool, you know, for a lot longer. Or I guess you could go down the route of getting a little, you know, a small CO2 bottle to get there. But ideally, with the kegging systems, most people will tell you that you need a fridge to kind of get the CO2 absorbed a lot better into it, and especially for serving that. You can do the rocking of the keg and whatnot, but you know, it works for me. The only one other thing I would say, if you go for that, and this is probably not even just the tip, just for general kegging anyway, is that holds obviously the beer, and you'll dispense the beer out, but it will keep beer within that line. I mean, I don't know how much it equates. I think I measured it once. It wasn't very much, but not the fact that it's wasted. If you don't drink more beer that night, you're probably all right for the next night. But I wouldn't want to leave the beer sitting there, especially with most people's setups. The piping is within the fridge, so it's not really an issue. But when this is outside of the fridge, you could sort of, you know, it could start going a bit stale and that. So what I did was, eBay again, one of the sort of like the Chinese sellers, you get like a big kind of medical grade syringe. I fill that with water, flush it through, then just fill it, open it up again, but flush it through with just the air inside it itself, so it pushes all the water out, just so it keeps it clean. You can run your star sand through it. You know, so if I'm not going to have any more beer that night, I'll chuck it on the sink for the morning, flush it out, and then when I come to use it again, it's clean and ready to go. It's got no nasty beer sitting in it. So if anyone's got any more questions, you know, about the setup and that, you know, I understand it's not as perfect as a kegging setup as you can get, you know, that other people have, but it's working all right for me so far. I've had drawn some good beers off of it, you know, and sometimes you can have a little bit of a murkier beer purely for the fact that you've put the carbonation sugar in the keg, so you can have a little bit more sediment on the bottom than, you know, most people have when they do their kegging setup. So there is that to think about, but it's the clarity of the beer isn't an issue for me when that's 9 litres of it sitting there and it's Christmas time and it's on tap, so I'm happy with that. I have seen people build a little framework, and what they've done was bent the dip tube down, the dispensing tube downwards, mount a tap like this on the outside of that wooden thing and put it in their fridge. But if you've got a wife or a girlfriend that's going to let you do that, great, but that ain't happening here. So, you know, I've had to go with this, and it lives by my bed, and that's where it's got to stay. So any questions, just, you know, send me a message or put it below, and I'll try and answer them.